This Chinese company has done it again. Deepseek released R1, and the benchmarks are so good, it's almost too good to be true. It's right on par with OpenAI O1, which costs $200 a month. And it's open source. They released it with the MIT license, which means you can use it for free commercially. And they even released a smaller distilled version of the model so you can run locally. I mean, these guys really brought it. So let's dive in and take a look. We'll look at the good, the bad, and the part I'm kind of evolving on. Maybe you can sway me in the comments. So let's start with the good and the great. And obviously that's going to be the price. This is totally free to use, and there's no limits on it. And one interesting thing, if you ask it what model it is, it's going to tell you it's version 3. But if you hit this Deep Think button, this is what turns on R1, or the Reasoning 1 model. And this is the one that does the chain of thought logic, and that's really comparable to OpenAI O1. And the really interesting thing is when you put Deep Think on, the text in gray here, this is what it's thinking about. And then the black text is the actual response to the prompt or the question. So these reasoning models are really kind of duplicate what the human mind works. You could think of this gray part as your internal thoughts, and then the black text is what you'd actually say. And I find it's really fascinating to look at that internal logic and reasoning to figure out how it got to that solution or response. To see how good the reasoning is, let's start out with a riddle. We'll say what 4-letter word can be written forward, backward, or upside down and can still be read from left to right. And then what's going to happen is this gray text is going to be its internal thinking. So it's going to really break the problem down, look at all these different solutions, and come up with the best answer. And I find it's just really interesting to watch this and read through it. They put hums in there and weights in there. It just really sounds like almost like your internal brain working. And it's interesting here when it gets the wrong answer. So it's saying SOOS isn't a word. XOX isn't a word. So it's kind of going through all the options it's found and saying what isn't a word. That's an important part of problem solving, is eliminating answers that aren't possible. This is actually really taking a long time to figure this out. But in the end, it got the right answer here. It's noon. Another area where the benchmark showed that Deepseek R1 really excelled was around software development. And just last week, I built an iOS app using O1 model, and I was really impressed with the results. It connected to Firebase, everything worked, it looked good, fully functional. So I'm going to go away, I'm going to use Deepseek R1 using exactly the same prompts and see if it gives me as good an app at the end as O1 did. So this is the app it came back with, and it's a bit of a mixed bag. It did do well in getting the app working. It got the navigation bar at the bottom done. I like the design that I built with O1 in that other video a bit better because it was more simplistic and minimal. I also had a lot of problems getting the Book Now button working. I don't remember having that problem when I built it with O1. All that said though, it's still very good at software development, but I'd say it's more good, not great. And now the bad. And to show you that, I'll ask Deepseek a very simple question. Tell me about Tiananmen Square incident. I was going to say, sorry, I'm not sure how to approach this type of question yet. Let's chat about math, coding, and logic. Now let's follow up with, are Uyghurs treated fairly in China? And this time I actually started answering it for a second, and then it came back and said, sorry, this is beyond my current scope. And the reason I say it's bad isn't even a political or moral judgment. It's really just that an AI model really needs to have all the accurate facts across the spectrum. It's really just a big web of information. And if you have some sections that are censored, it can lead to problems in other parts of the model. Similar to when the first version of Gemini came out, you might remember it couldn't draw an Italian pope. But unfortunately, I think it's just going to be the cost of admission for any AI coming out of China. Which brings me to the thing I'm kind of questioning, and maybe you can help me in the comments, give me your opinion. But when I first heard about DeepSeek and I heard it was a Chinese company, some alarm bells went off in the sense that in China, the Chinese government can get access to private companies' data if they need to. Which basically means all the data you send through DeepSeek could potentially be used by the Chinese government for whatever reason they wanted to use it for. Which is different than in the US, for example, where there's a distinct legal difference between a corporation and the government. Although as I thought more about it, I kind of came to the conclusion that it's not actually that big a deal in this sense. The number one reason it's not a big deal is because they decided to open source this. Which means you could take the model offline, use it for your own purposes, and have no worries about that data going back to DeepSeek or China or anyone else. And also, if you think about it, this model is so good now. It's obviously scraped almost every bit of text that humans have ever created. What am I really going to tell it that the Chinese government or anyone's going to really learn that much from? It's really a tool for me. It's not really any information I can give them. Other than two things, kind of advanced proprietary data, which most people don't have access to, and personal information, which I wouldn't give any AI company. And if we look at the alternative, I'd say the alternative being OpenAI would be the big one. They've obviously recently gotten really close with the new US government, You can see that in a lot of different ways with this Project Stargate, for example. But also they're closed source. They're never going to release their model. You'd really have no idea what they're doing with the data anyway. So I don't know if it's that big a difference between a US AI company and a Chinese AI company in a practical sense. In fact, I'd almost say whatever company does the open source is the one you want to go with. In that case, that would be Deepseek. But let me know in the comments if there's something you think I'm missing here. And also in terms of running this model locally, I'm going to do a video coming up on how to run it locally, one of those distilled models I talked about. So make sure you subscribe to see that. I hope you're having an amazing day. I'll talk to you in the next one.